All right, so welcome to Closers Are Losers. Today, we've got a very important subject. So my name is Jeremy Miner. I'm the chairman and founder of Seventh Level. This is our co-host, the one and only, the myth, the man, the legend out of Australia down under, Matt Ryder. What's going on down in Sydney, man? I heard something happened, like your car got stolen or something. That little Honda Accord you had, like who stole that?
That $200,000 Honda that I have. Yep.
Yeah.
Got stolen. Yeah. No, so yeah, somebody broke in. I parked my car outside my house. We have like a gated house. Yeah. So outside the gate, I parked my car. My wife's car is on the inside. And my neighbor didn't have very good security.
Yeah.
So they broke into the neighbor's area, jumped into mine, and then smashed a window, got into the house, went straight for my car keys, grabbed them, and then stole my car. And it's not a big deal. It was cleaning up the blood that was the worst part.
Well, what happened? You like threw the baseball bat to them?
No, I was asleep, and then I heard someone rustling around. So then I came downstairs with a baseball bat because I always have one. In Australia, you can't, like, the guns are in 17.
Play baseball, so you just have baseball bats.
Exactly. So ran downstairs, heard the rustling out in the front, ran outside in the front, and then from there saw people skittle off, and then shut the gate, ran back up, checked the kids. Everyone was there. Went to my wife, said, call the police. And then I went and kicked every door in my house, threatening to kill everybody. So.
Were you still in there?
No, they were gone by that stage. They were in my car joyriding. And
did you guys get the car yet?
Yeah. I have the app on my phone. So I literally shut my car down and then had the police there in about, I don't know, they were there probably in 15 minutes.
So the car just literally just stopped in the middle of the road.
No, it makes it kind of like, it limits it. And then the people pull over, and then, cause they're like, what's going on? Then from there, I popped the boot, turned the music on, put the lights on and off, locked the car. I did all kinds of funny stuff.
Okay. Because they
just ran.
So we, for some reason, they didn't know that $200,000 cars might have that technology, possibly. Right. I don't know. So that's an interesting story, man. I'm going to get into that a little bit more deeper sometime. All right. So we're going to talk about words that you are using as a sales professional. Maybe you're a business owner and maybe you don't realize your sales team are using certain words or languaging in their conversations, in their presentations, in their discovery calls, whether you're B2C, B2B, door to door, doesn't matter, that are actually triggering objections, actually triggering resistance. Okay. So if you're brand new to our podcast, Closers Losers, welcome to the podcast. So we're an organization that trains salespeople just like you, entrepreneurs, coaches, sales executives, and we train you how to use human behavior in your sales process. We call this NEPQ, stands for Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questioning. We train you how to use that where you get your prospects to want to engage, to actually want to have conversations. So you teach you the right tonality, put your prospects at ease, takes the sales pressure out of the conversation, gets them to sell and persuade themselves. So Matt, we train a lot of salespeople, different industries all over the place. What words, and I'm going to give you some words that I see a lot of salespeople use that are just the standard sales words, and they don't realize the trouble that it gets them in. What's one or two words that you see salespeople that we're training or companies that we're training use that they just don't get, really trigger a lot of sales resistance?
Anyway, and obviously.
Okay. Tell us why on those.
So anyway is a lazy way of bringing a subject back to something that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's very lazy. So when I'm having a conversation, I go, anyway, it's just me saying, I dismiss everything you've just said because I don't care about it and I want to talk about this.
Right. And then what goes on in the prospect's mind?
They're just thinking that they're not being listened to. They're thinking that this person's trying to take me through a process. As soon as someone knows you're going through a process, then the answers that you get are very different. The other one is obviously, because it means that you're assuming a lot. Well, obviously it's like, well, no, it's not obvious to them. And I think one thing that salespeople forget is that although you might have this conversation every single day of your life, it's the first time for the other person.
Yeah.
And so things aren't obvious. And if I were talking about my hand and neither of us ever clarifies which side of the hand, and I say, well, obviously we're talking about this side, right? But we never clarify that because I don't do clarifying or probing questions, then we're essentially starting to have, and our conversation will break very early. And then we're having a different conversation, which makes it hard to secure our emotional anchors.
Yeah. And then at that point, it just becomes more of a surface level conversation, and there's no emotion. Like you said, there's no need, there's no urgency. And so that's when that triggers a lot of objections at the end. We don't need it. We don't have the money. I need to think it over. I need to talk to my spouse, my business partner, can I call you back in a week, a month, a year later? Right. And then we lose sales. I definitely I totally agree with you on both of those. A lot of times, the anyway is a big deal, right? Because a lot of times when we're training companies and salespeople, and in between questions, they'll like ask a question on them when we listen to calls from the reps, they'll ask a question and the prospect's talking, and then all of a sudden they just cut them off and they say, well, anyway, and then they go back, and it just invalidates everything that the prospect just said.
And that could have been important stuff.
Yeah. 100%.
And if it wasn't, then you should be able to identify that and interrupt them tactfully to go, oh, you'd mentioned this. Do you mind if I ask you about that? Because nobody minds being interrupted if you're asking them about them.
100%. If you're focused on them.
Yeah. So one of the worst things that I hear in sales is when they they don't know how to interrupt because they think that interrupting is rude. Interrupting is only rude if you do it in a rude way. And I want you guys to try this at home or next time you're in a conversation. Yeah. So go, you just mentioned this. Do you mind if I ask you about that? Or you just interject and go, what did you mean by this?
Yeah.
Right. Because if you're asking for clarification, that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do within a conversation, is ask for clarification. Yeah. And so if you're doing that, you can interrupt them. You can get them back on track really, really easily, really, really tactfully. That's not going to induce sales resistance. And you can shorten your call, because the reason why most people's calls are long is because they allow for 2 to 3 minute tangents. Now, 6 of them in a call is not unusual to hear. Yeah. That is 12 to 18 minutes. That changes extra 45-minute call. It's just extra minutes.
It's extra minutes that don't help you in that sales process, doesn't help you move them towards a sale, and it doesn't help them move towards a sale to solve their problems, because it's just mumbo jumbo. We're training a big Amazon company right now, training a bunch of their reps in our inner circle program. And a lot of times they're like, I just don't know how to cut people off. And one of the biggest questions they're asking them is, if they like what they're doing for a living now. So John, this job you've had as a neurosurgeon the last 5 years, do you like what you're doing for a living? And they'll just go on and on and on and on for 7 minutes about something they didn't like 12 years ago that has no relevance to right now. And they don't understand that is not moving the sale forward. It's actually moving it backwards, and it's making their calls longer. They can see less prospects every day. They make less money. The company makes less money. So instead of doing that, let's say if we ask them, what do you do for a living, or what do you do for work? If you sold like a biz op, right? Because their problems are, they want to make more money. They want to have more time in a biz op space. Like if you're selling real estate education, or if you're selling somebody how to start their own Amazon business, or if you're selling franchises, for example, train a lot of companies to sell franchises, okay, or licensing, and you're asking them what they do for a living. And a lot of times they might say, well, 27 years ago, I joined the Marines, and, I got shot in Vietnam. And, then about 15 years ago, I was a truck driver. And then, and that has nothing relevant. So all you do is you just cut them up and say, oh, John, I apologize. I meant, like, what are you doing for a living, like right now? Because that's relevant. And when you interrupt them and ask them that question, and you focus back on them, they're like, oh yeah, let me tell you about that. But if you interrupt somebody and then you start talking about your solution, then that is mean, and they don't like that, and they get offended. That's the difference.
Solution dropping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just really looking for ways to make sense, to sort of like make more money. Oh, that's amazing. Because what we do with our Amazon business is we help people create financial freedom, and we want to do that. It's like, oh, shut up, guys. Like, that's like that you're immediately hated by that prospect.
100% of the time. Another word you want to avoid, like the Black Plague in 13th century France that killed millions of people in medieval Europe, is you never want to say, hey, I'm just calling to follow up. I'm just calling to follow up with you. Follow up is an evil word in sales because your prospects hear that every single day by every single salesperson that's always trying to chase them. In the emails, they hear it in the emails. I'm just following up on the last email I sent you. In the text message, I'm just following up on our conversation. In the last voicemail, hey, John, it's Jeremy. I'm just following up on see if you're ready to go. So that follow up automatically in their mind is a red flag. You're just trying to sell me. You're just trying to call me to close me and get my money. So take the word follow up out, and you can use a different word. I'm just getting back to you. Okay, I just had time to get back to you is more neutral than saying I'm just following up with you. It means the same thing, but it's just more of a neutral, it's more neutral language. It's more of a neutral word there.
Yeah, I was explaining one of the new reps that we've onboarded comes from he's a very successful rep. He did 13 million in sales last year as a 24-year-old, which is phenomenal. But he only made a small amount of commissions because he was in an environment where they took advantage of him type thing because he started there when he was real young. So now he's coming to us. But he was trained in a highly authoritative, very beat 'em up style. Yeah. But that's a great grounding to have because then you can kind of switch back between when you need to. Do you know what I mean? Sure. Yeah. But I think like what we worked on today, because we did a call review, is like he was constantly triggering sales resistance by asking questions in the wrong way and by telling people the answer. Yeah. So a lot of the feedback that I give to reps is like they sort of like ask a question, give them the answer, and then ask for affirmation. You know what I mean? It's a really, really common thing. So it's like, so I think you said that you were feeling really stressed, which, you know, is obviously causing you a little bit of strife in your family. Is that right? And they're like, yeah. And then like, so you're trying to explain, okay, well, where does that conversation go then? Because now all you're doing is opening and closing boxes that essentially there's no power in the conversation. So one of the mantras that I try and teach people is that everything I say is garbage. Yeah. Everything they say is gospel. So if I have that in my head and I want them to think something, I have to figure out a question that gets them to come up with that answer. Yeah. I can't just give them the answer.
Yeah, you have to turn your statements into questions. So the highest paid psychologist on planet Earth, think Dr. Phil, if you ever watch it, I don't know if they have that over in Australia, but Dr. Phil's the man over here, right? I think you guys have it. So Dr. Phil, the guy makes like $2,500 an hour, 30 minutes, right? So the highest paid psychologists in the world that make $1,000 to $2,000 an hour, the reason why they get paid that much is not because they tell their patients their problems and they tell them what they should do to fix the problems. That's what average psychologists, do. They get paid $50 or $100 an hour. That's just average. The highest paid turn their statements into questions. They get the prospect to tell themselves what their true problems are and this, like what caused the problem, the root cause, and how it's affecting them. And they make sure that their statements also as well are turned into questions that give the answers in the prospect's mind of what they need to do themselves to overcome their own problems. It's just like if you see Tony Robbins at events, he's great at going into the audience. He doesn't tell the person what they're doing wrong and what they need to do. He asks questions that allow them to tell themselves how they can overcome their own problems. And when they tell themselves how they can do it and why they can do it and why they need to do that, that's the gospel, like Matt's talking about. If you tell them why they need to do it or what their problems are or what they need to do to fix it, it's in one ear out the other because it's your opinion. It's your agenda. It's not theirs.
And your agenda is to sell them. And so everything that you're taking is taken with a context of every single shitty used car salesman they've ever come across. Yeah. Going, what's it going to take you to get into this car today? Never asking you a single thing about why you're even looking for a new car or what kind of car you currently have or what kind of cars have you had in the past. And did you like the cars you had in the past? Yeah. Oh, what did you like about them? Okay, perfect. Like, was there anything you would change? I'd love an extra row of seating. Oh, why is that? Are you guys expecting? Oh, fantastic. When's it due? Perfect. Then you can put like a time frame and an impact and all this kind of stuff. And you can actually sell the person something that they require, instead of just trying to push the thing down their throat that you think is the best, having no knowledge about the person. Yeah. And so Yeah, I think I could go sell cars.
I mean, what I could keep going on all these words, right? It's all these words. I mean, we could talk about 1,000 different words that most salespeople don't even realize they're saying that are triggering all this resistance. It's the same thing. We know Matt just brought something up very important. Never say, what's it going to take for you to buy today? What's it going to take for you to do this? Because all it does is immediately put the focus on you. And instead of getting them to think results-based thinking, where price doesn't matter because all they're thinking about getting the results, they'll pay anything to get the results. Now you've put them down in a category where they're thinking cost-based thinking. And all they're doing now is they're commoditizing you and your products with all these other salespeople that are competing for that account or whatever you're selling. And now you become commoditized and they're going to chew you down and negotiate you on price. And that's how companies lose tens of millions of dollars a year, is because all they're getting their prospects to do is focus on cost-based thinking rather than results-based thinking. Completely different type of results as sales professionals and companies.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's one of the ways that I can kind of put it into like an analogy is when you're selling someone and you use neutral language and you do it correctly, it's like playing chess against someone who doesn't realize they're playing a game.
Yeah.
And then by the time you go to your presentation phase, you're going to have a spike of sales resistance the moment you start presenting, because no matter how well you do it, you're still talking about money and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's that little spike.
Yeah.
And so that's when they realize they're playing chess.
Yeah.
But you're so far down the field that like they're basically in checkmate because you I was giving this example today because this guy that I was training, and I was like, you're doing the right things, but you're saying the things in the wrong way. I was like, imagine you're a guy pretending to be a feminist, right? So that you can pick up chicks, right? Like that's essentially what it is. Okay. So like if you're that really macho dude, I'm just using like really random examples, and you're like this alpha dude banging his chest, the girls are like, look at this dickhead. Yeah. Then you got the guy who's swooping in, talking to him about their problems, understanding them. That guy is without like, they don't think there's any ulterior motives. They're just getting information because they don't feel threatened by that person. That person then has all of this sort of information they require to get what they want. Yeah. Right. But the other guy is coming in bravado, like a normal sales guy, just going like, yeah, we can do this and we can do this. It's like that. You don't get any information. And so I was this guy's a young guy, right? So I was trying to explain, I was like, you need to be that guy. You need to be the guy who is like non-threatening, who gets the information. Yeah. And then you can turn on the hammer and you can drop velvet hammers all day long, but you need to have the information.
You want to be the rep where they don't view you with any risk. And let me give you an example. When I, you know my story, when I got into sales, I was a 21-year-old college kid, completely broke. And I remember, I got my first job selling home security systems door to door, right? And, I thought it would be easy. Everybody starts throwing out these objections. And I quickly realized that I didn't know anything about selling because I'd read some books and they gave us a script. Didn't work that well. You had to pound on 100 doors to make one sale. So I quickly realized that I needed to get the person who opened the door not to view me as a salesperson. So how do I do that? Now, everybody else in my office, like, this was like, 20 years ago. So I'm thinking like they would wear like gold change and like they'd wear these nice like gold, and silver watches. And they'd have these
Look how good I am at selling.
Nice, they had these nice polos and nice like, dress shoes on, and a lot of them would wear slacks and stuff. They just look really professional. What would they look like? Exactly what a salesperson looks like. So I figured out I need to look not like a salesperson and I need to sound not like a salesperson. So what did I do? I went and I wore almost the same thing every day. I was like the Elmer guy or whatever, same shirt. I just wore this like, dark blue shirt, or I remember sometimes I'd have like a, just a yellow shirt, just a boring polo. I would have these tan shorts, very boring. And I wore those New Balance, the New Balance shoes.
Yeah, like the dad shoes. Yeah. The ones from Costco.
Yeah. That's what I wore. I wore the grandpa white New Balance shoes, so basic. And then I went to Walmart here in the United States and I bought a $5 watch. You want one of the digital ones. So just like a $5 watch. And then I wore like over here in the States, they have these construction vests on that are orange or green. And I would wear an orange or green one around me with the tape measure. So I had a tape measure on. So basically when I knocked on everybody's door, it's almost like they thought I was like a construction crew worker fixing something down the road. And so there was no resistance when they opened the door. Okay. Or when they looked through the door at a guy that had like a suit on, the
high-vis vest. Yeah.
Yeah. But when they looked at me, I looked like a construction worker. Like, what type of threat is a construction worker knocking at your door? Of course they're going to open. So just the look like didn't trigger resistance. Now, obviously you can't sound like other salespeople. You can't say the same things you do. You can't sound so excited and enthusiastic. You have to be more low key and relaxed and more neutral. And that opens up your prospects. But you not only don't want to sound like a salesperson, you don't want to act, or you don't want to look like a salesperson, if that makes sense.
The true ninja tactics. Right?
We even have salespeople.
Spy. We train a spy.
Yeah, we train a solar company right now, and they put on hard hats. So they put on like freaking like the little white hard hats with the orange vest when they go out and knock doors. And like, yeah, nobody thinks we're trying to sell them anything. And we're halfway into it, and they're like already, signing everything. They don't even know what's going on. Now they obviously know what's going on, but there's no sales. There's just no sales resistance. It's just much easier of a process. And when you're not competing against sales resistance in the first minute, so much easier to sell and get people to want to engage with you. Now, another word we want to always avoid is you never want to say, and I'm going to give you guys a story about kind of a company that used to do this, and a lot of people do this. They'd get to the end of their presentation, their customers agreeing, they're paying for everything, and they're like, they push across the table, the contract, and they say, all right, we just need you to sign the contract. Sign the contract. Now, let me tell everybody on here, nobody wants to sign a contract, because a contract is like, oh man, that's going to lock me in. I need to have a lawyer look at that, or I need to have somebody look at that. So what do? We still have to have them sign this document. We can't just say, here, sign the document. I don't know what it is. Just sign it. You can't do that. You just push it across and just say, here's a pen. We just have to have you authorize the agreement. Authorize the agreement means the same thing as sign the contract, but it's more of a neutral term. Everybody's okay with authorizing the agreements, but nobody likes to sign contracts.
Same as funding versus financing.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about financing. People are more than happy to talk about funding.
Exactly. If you say, well, what type of financing, or we have financing options, they're like, oh, I don't want to get into debt with that interest. But if you're like, a lot of our clients, we give them like funding options. They're like, oh, funding. Because funding sounds official. I
like being funded. Has the word fun in it. How can it be bad? It's funding.
Funding, right? Rather than financing. So there's all these little words that you might be using in your sales conversations with your prospects. And you might even only be using one or two of those, but it's triggering sales resistance. And you're for sure losing sales every week and every month that you would be making if you learned how to neutralize some of your words where you didn't sound like a typical salesperson. 100%.
The thing about it is you cannot recover from triggering sales resistance. Like it's a blip, and then that never resets. So if you look at a graph of like a vertical axis and a horizontal, the vertical axis being sales resistance and the horizontal being time, let's say that call goes for an hour. It's a blip, 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 blip. And then by the time you get to your presentation, you're up here. Whereas you need to be down at the bottom, and you need to actively do that. So when you get to your presentation, the blip doesn't take you over a threshold to where that person is now, hey, I'd rather not get into this today. I'd just really love if we could kind of reschedule. You could send me some information about you and your products and maybe some client testimonials. And then I'll go ahead and I'll consult my rabbi, my priest, my wife, and my neighbor. And then potentially we can get back in the next 24 to 36 weeks.
And my uncle, and my Uncle Joe. Yes, correct. Or and the man in the van down by the river, because he's important too. So it's 100% true. You're triggering resistance throughout the whole conversation, and that just triggers more objections at the end. One thing you never want to do as well, and we don't necessarily see this in B2B sales, but we see this a lot more like in the high ticket industry when we train companies and reps like that, is they go into the first call and they have this frame. It's like this crazy frame, and you know it better than I do, where they're like, all right, so at the end of the call, we're going to go through everything. And at the end of this call, you're going to say, is this a good fit for me? And you're ready to get started, or we're simply going to leave the call and it's not a good fit for you. What did they say?
Yeah.
You've got the wording down.
Yeah. So Jeremy, so the way the call is going to go today is I'm going to ask you a few questions about you and your business. And then if I feel like we're a good fit, then what I'll do is I'll tell you exactly how we do and and then what we can do for you. And if you think it's a good fit, then on the call today, we can go ahead and we can make a decision. If it's not a good fit, then we don't have to. Does that make sense? Now that's like, it presents quite softly when you think about it, but then you're like, what you're saying to that person is you will make a decision at the end of this call. But it's like, and I've had not arguments, but I've had debates with a lot of people in the coaching and consulting industry about that, because they go, nope, we've done the data and people close better when there's a, what do they call it? When there's like an agenda set. I go, well, they might close better, but it's despite, not because of, right? Because they might feel better about, they might feel more confident in the call, because all that agenda does, it's a farcical thing to make the salesperson feel like they're in control of a process in which they don't have control. In a sales call, we don't have control over what happens. Yeah. It's up to the person to decide. Yeah. We can give a very good argument, but at the end of the day, we can't control it. So all it's there to do is make the salesperson feel better about themselves. Yeah. So if we can just teach them that and go, hey man, it's okay. You cannot sell everybody. You can't dictate what they do. So you shouldn't be angry or upset. It's just do your best, do your process. That's it, right? That's
your process. You're going to close form. The reason why the data is not there for them is because of the way they sell the rest of the call. If you're just asking surface level questions throughout the whole conversation and you don't have an agenda, you'll probably close less. But if you follow NEPQ and you're getting the prospect to want to engage with you and want to open up to you and actually go beneath the service and tell you the reason, not just the why, but what's behind the why. That's the big difference. And that's why they close themselves towards the end of that conversation, where you very rarely get objections, because when you set that frame in the beginning in that industry, all it does, especially with A-type personalities, which a lot of them are, is it triggers resistance in their mind at the very beginning, that they know that this person is going to try to close them at the end, because they know the salesperson is biased. They know they're just trying to make the sale. They're not stupid. That technique might have worked 15, 20 years ago, but I'm telling you, people are far more sophisticated with the internet, especially social media. They know they have many choices to choose the exact product or service that you sell. It does not matter your industry. Okay. That's changed a lot in the last 5 or 10 years. And when you use those type of things in the beginning to think you have control, and then you just ask surface level questions, well, you have no control. The only way you control a sale and influence is by getting the prospect to persuade themselves. It's just like the chess. They don't know they're in this game until it's so far down there that they've already told themselves why they have to change now. And all they're thinking is results-based thinking. So whatever price you give to them, they feel that they're going to get 10 times more than that. So it's a no-brainer for them to decide to purchase at the end of the call. That's how you have control of the conversation.
And the same people who do agendas, and this is my book, because I don't even know if you know this exists. Do you know what offers made means?
No, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think you did. So in the coaching and consulting industry, people track their close rate a lot of the time off offers made. Okay. So they will take the person all the way through to the end of the call. And then if they get resistance, they will go, you know what? I don't think that you're ready for this program at this time. We're really looking for people who are action takers. So at this stage, I think I'm just going to go ahead and sort of rescind what I've said. And I don't think you're right for the program.
Which does what to the prospect? Pisses them off.
Well, no, but it's a genuine, we're gone now. Yeah. Then they won't count that on their stats for their close rate because they did a no offer, right? So you'll have people come to you and go, I close at 40%. And you have to ask the question, is that of offers made or people that show up? And they go, offers made. And I go, okay, what's your stat for people that show up? And they might go 5%. Right. So it's like, it's another tool that, to be perfectly honest, I'm pretty sure traffic and funnels developed that. Right.
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure I could be wrong. Yeah. And again, I could see why, because it's really there to make the salesperson feel better about themselves. But it's not productive because it really limits the thinking where, like, you know, we have guys in NEPQ, they posted up like 4 of them this week were like, I'm now closing over 80%. Yeah. I'm like, yes, again, like sometimes I felt like I was taking crazy pills for a whole year. Yeah. Where everybody was like, I was the only guy who was able to close at like 80, 90%. Yeah. And I was like, it's possible. They're like, yeah, I've offers made. I was like, no. Everyone that turns up, everyone that shows up to a call, I'll close 9 and 10. Yeah. And they were like, no, it can't be done. I was like, I do it every day. I was like, do you want the calls? Like, I'll
show you.
I was like, this is crazy. And now,
yeah.
Yeah. And now that we've been doing NEPQ for a while and people are really starting to dial themselves in, like Bill, first week on the account went, I think 5 from 6.
Yeah.
So, like it's doable. Like it really is achievable. And it's like, but you just have to like chip away at it. And I feel like the message is getting out there because of you and me and other people that like, no, if you do this the right way, you can close at a super high rate.
Well, and the other way when you're just doing that to make the salesperson feel good about themselves is because they feel good about themselves. They don't feel like they need to learn more advanced skills to improve that because they feel that what they're doing is already the best there is. It's like, it's always like, it's like playing golf, right? Like I play a lot of golf. We live on this golf. We live on the 16th hole. And so we'll just go out there, I'll play 9 or, I'll play a full round of golf, 18 holes. And I'll have like this one hole that I shoot really, really well. And I'll get like a birdie. But then the other 17 holes, I really suck. But I don't really have anybody to compete with. So I'm like, oh, I must be doing okay. Because on that 1 or 2 holes, I did really, really well. And I don't think about the ones that I really sucked at. I just think about the couple that I did really well. So I don't know what I don't know. I'm not around other people that are professional golfers. Because if I was around them, I'd be like, man, I really suck. Right. It's the same thing with sales. You might go into these companies and you're the top dog because you're getting 40% of the ones that you made the offer to. But then you get around like people in our group and companies that we train, and they might look at that and be like, dude, that's not very good, but they don't have anything to compare it with.
We had a company the other day that said they would be happy if we closed at 20%. And I was like, I'll fire myself if we close at 20%.
Well, that's what happened. So when we this is before you came on as the CEO of the company. This is a couple of years ago, but our first B2B client was Google AdWords. As you know, I think you know the story, but we trained 4 of their divisions. And they were like, man, if you guys can get us like a 5 to 7% uplift, that's huge for us. And I'm like 5%. I'm like, good Lord, we could just teach you one question that's probably that your salespeople could ask would probably give you 5%. 90 days later, 244% increase in sales. They actually had to go back and audit that 4 times because they didn't believe that was possible. But it was just because of the way their salespeople have been trained. They were more product pushers, just talking about the product and how great they were. They didn't realize that maybe the people that responded to their ads or signed up for AdWords accounts could possibly have problems that their AdWords accounts, if they taught them how to do it right, could actually solve. They never even thought about the concept. So a lot of times you just don't know what you don't know. You think a 20% closing ratio is good because you're just around people that only do 10 or 15%. But once you get around people that do 40 or 50 or 60%, 20% doesn't look so hot.
Exactly.
Love it. Exactly. All right. That was a great podcast. Hope that helped everybody on here. Remember the words you use. If you don't know how to use neutral language, if you use words that every other salesperson uses, they're just going to trigger sales resistance. So you want to eliminate those. If you've not joined our Facebook group, Sales Revolution, there's a button here somewhere that you can click on here. I've been told to join our Facebook group, Sales Revolution. Matt and I go in live there about 4 or 5 times a week with our sales trainers and give out a lot of training. We have a lot of free resources we give you access to that are going to help you make sales even outside of our paid sales training that obviously we do for companies and individuals. So Sales Revolution, link here to join. Matt, take care out in Sydney. I really want to come out and see your office there, but your country's closed since COVID.
Closed the business.
Yeah. I'd really like to get over there somehow. I don't know. Somehow.
You will. You will.
All right, everybody. Thanks. Have a good night.
All right, guys. Bye.
Now, if you're serious about joining the top 1%, I mean the top 1%, and you want to experience more training content just like this, click the links right over there. Right over there, they're exactly what you need to see next. You see, I release new episodes featuring top salespeople and sales authorities, multiple 6-figure, high 6-figure, even 7-figure earners. And if you're new here, do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button right below, and join our new Facebook group, Sales Revolution. You see, it's free, and there's a link in the description below just for you. We put it there for you. Finally, I make posts on Facebook and Instagram each and every day with more tips and training. So be sure and follow me and turn on your notifications. So make a comment in the first 7 minutes to any of my latest posts, share this episode, and there's a very real chance that you're going to win some killer prizes. And here's the thing, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be like everyone else. Get into the game. Join the sales revolution. Stay active, get involved, learn the right skills, and we will show you how to take your life and income to a level that most only dream about.